Bienvenue tous et
Welcome to this special edition of the France 24 interview. We're in a hotel, but it's a very special hotel. It's the headquarters of the Italian national rugby team as they prepare for the World Cup. And with me, a hero, sporting hero for the French and well-known in rugby worldwide, Pierre BERBIZIER. Pierre, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us, what's the difference between being a player and a coach at a national level?
I think the real difference is just at the time of the kickoff. When you're a player, you can actually smell the field, you're close up, and the coach is on the bench. And he no longer has the power to influence anything. And the real sensation is really for the players in the field, and they have the power. And the coach, once that ball has been kicked, he can no longer really affect anything. He can just watch and hope for the best, that his players will be able to make the difference in the field.
Is it difficult, being French, to be in charge of the Italian national team, even if you play against, say, the French?
In my head, I'm Italian, but in my heart is French. And things are clear in that way. I will give my all for that Italian team so that they can win, to really be up to scratch and to meet our objectives. And in that World Cup, we really want to be a player in the Cup.
You've got lots of experience in the World Cup, both as a player with France and now, of course, as a coach with Italy. Is it just as good from both sides?
I was fortunate enough to have an experience as a coach in the French team in '95 for the World Cup. So obviously, it's enabled me to acquire a certain level of experience, top-level experience. But at the same time, nothing is ever won ahead of time, and one has to call oneself into question in top-level play, and that's really what keeps motivation going, to keep moving forward.
I saw you play lots of times as a player, and frankly, I think you're one of the best in the world.
That's the difference between a player and a coach. You can see the player play, and the coach, you don't know what he's doing on the bench. Obviously, I was fortunate enough with the French team to play at top level and to have played in top-level matches, the World Cup in '87, for example, and obviously in the Five Nations. It was Five Nations at the time because Italy wasn't yet in the tournament. And then as a coach, with various different sensations, but with the possibility of prolonging one's passion for the game as a coach. And I think what's common to both is that privilege to keep that passion going in a different capacity.
The game has changed a great deal. The biggest change, professionalism.
Rugby as a game has changed in its form, but I think it's basically the same game. The basis is the same. Simply, the form has changed to a certain extent. There is an evolution. Perhaps it's a change in life in general. You have obviously the sheer size of the players. They run faster, they're stronger, they're bigger. And as I said, they're faster. So necessarily, there is a change in play. There's no doubt about that. But other than that, I think it's basically the same game it's always been. But there is professionalism now, and the approach that you have today is different because of that, I think. It's different than the amateur system we had, up until '95. Now, the whole era of professionalism has seen the light of day. After the Sydney event, that I think that professionalism in rugby has changed.
People talk about professionalism, those kind of changes. Bernard Laporte, who's now the French national team manager, has raised questions about doping. This follows, of course, the Tour de France scandal. Laporte has said that perhaps there are other rugby countries who have players who take drugs, perhaps. The kind of people who use illegal substances. What do you think of what Laporte said? Could there be rugby players who take drugs?
Okay. Well, there's a difference between Bernard Laporte and me. Bernard Laporte is a very great communicator. I'm just a coach. Mr. Laporte needs to be in the spotlight on an ongoing basis, and I think he says many things. And for my part, I listen to what Mr. Laporte is saying, but personally, I don't have that strategy, which is a strategy of provocation and insult. And most often, we have seen with the controversy against the New Zealand team and the British team, and the Dickinson, the referee, question during the New Zealand tournament, and the whole French public. If you like, in his strategy, in his approach, I don't really want to get into that. And I regret this whole thing because personally, whether it's the British or the New Zealand team, to be attacked on this, I have a great deal of respect for those teams. And I'm afraid that they'll have a negative image of France because of these comments and this provocation and insult. Above and beyond that, there is a question of doping in sport in general, in professional sport. It's not only a rugby problem, and that question has to be posed. And also, we have to ask ourselves some hard questions about the strenuous schedule imposed on professional players, and the fact that money now plays an important role, and this does, and the real question about doping is often, has to take that into account.
It's about pressure. Pressure on athletes, doesn't matter which sport. The pressure says they've got to take drugs.
These are the characteristics of the game in sport, in top-level sport, and all types of sport. And this has had an effect. Doping has had an effect in all areas. I don't think that in rugby we've reached that point. Even if there can always be an unfortunate exception, we can't avoid, isolated incidents from occurring.
From the point of view of preparing for the World Cup and the national team here, are you happy with how it's going? We're in the Alps here, fantastic setting.
Well, I think you have to put everything into perspective. We're doing the best we can with the means at our disposal, which obviously aren't the same, that the major teams have. But the conditions, we're trying to, compete as equals with our rivals, and with our means, we're trying to optimize our preparation to be ready for the World Cup. In Aarhus, we have found the ideal conditions within our budget to prepare for the World Cup. And I think in terms of the whole atmosphere of the preparation, we're really work-orientated. I think everybody's understood that this is necessary. But, you can also do this with a smile. And I think it's important. All of these aspects are important. Work, rigor, discipline, and enthusiasm and motivation and the whole pleasure in playing. I think that will help us to move forward.
There's been a big improvement in Italian rugby in recent years, and I'm going to put it down to you. What do you say?
Qu'est-ce que vous allez dire? Vous savez, je crois
I believe in this, the mixture of work, the talent of the players, and success. That magic cocktail has to be there, and that's what helps you move forward. I think the talent of the players is number one on top of the list. And they have been able to become aware of their possibilities, and they've had the will to compete as equals with their adversaries who obviously have more experience. So I think we do have work to do. This has to be set up properly. We have to fit that into a budget. And we have to have a view towards success, and that's what helps you to move forward. This has enabled us today to position our work internationally, to be more credible, at least, to have respect on the part of our adversaries. And that's for us a first victory, in fact. And that's what enables us to believe in the future.
From the point of view of your ambition then, now, your ambitions in rugby. Win the World Cup, sure, but what happens after that?
I think the result is a consequence, always. I try to explain this to my players. It's not a question of winning or losing. It's really the capacity, the capability of giving 100% of yourself, of your means, at the right time, in the right place, on the field, or whether you're training or in a match. Once you've given your all, I think there's nothing that can be criticized, but there's no cause for criticism. The adversary has the right to be good. And so whether you win or lose, that's put into perspective. And when that team comes off the field, if they've given their all, whether they won or lost, you have an adversary, and you don't control the adversary. And for me, that's the most important thing. The most important result is that. If you can get more victories, obviously, we're all for that. But the important thing is to optimize, everything you're giving at the right time.
But surely winning must be everything.
Well, obviously, I think that victory is the objective you're looking for. You obviously have to have the means to do that, and to reach or not that objective. But you have to be properly positioned with respect to your objectives.
Last question. Bernard Laporte's going to leave the job as the national trainer of France. You've got other things in store, perhaps, but if you had the opportunity, would you take the job?
Of course. I'm always available for the French team. I've had the privilege and the opportunity to play for the French team and to coach the French team, and I had the opportunity to represent my country more than 100 times. So I think the French team is really is something apart for me. I attach a great deal of importance to that. You never say no to the French team. That being said, I'm aware of reality, and I really don't fit into any French rugby system. I'm kind of a free electron, and free electrons are a source of fear to some, and I don't really think that I'm on the list. I'm on the short list.
Thank you, Pierre Berbizier, for being with us on France 24 as free electron or loose cannon or like yourself. Thank you very much for being with us anyway, and thank you too. Stay with France 24.